Now, Google-based wearOS smartwatches have been making a bit of a comeback recently, and one such smartwatch is the Ticwatch Pro 5. Now, I've been using the Ticwatch Pro 5 for the last 3 weeks to review everything ranging from its design, the wearOS experience, its heart rate sensor accuracy, test its 80 hours battery claim, some annoying features, what's the point of that, some cool features, and much more to try and find out if the Ticwatch Pro 5 is a hidden gem that you should consider when purchasing a smartwatch today, or if it's just another overhyped wearOS smartwatch with a terrible battery life. Let's find out. Now, the Ticwatch Pro 5 costs $350 but there are discounts to be had on this, and at the time of filming this video you can buy this for less than $270. Now, it comes in this long and slightly chunky box which contains the watch, some manuals, and a proprietary charging cable with a USB-A connection at the other end. Now, as soon as I held the watch in my hands, it felt like a well-made product, and that's probably due to some of the design choices here, like the aluminum casing mixed with nylon fiberglass, finished in this matte black color, which I really like. The knurling on the bezel as well as the texture on the crown elevates the design as well. Now, I'll get to the crown a bit later on in this video, and the watch strap is a standard 24mm silicone strap, which is interchangeable. Now, the display here, or shall I say the displays, are the party trick of the Ticwatch Pro 5. You see, there's actually two displays stacked right on top of each other. There's a really bright and colorful AMOLED touchscreen at 1.43 inches, which has worked well in almost all scenarios, indoors as well as outdoors. And on top of this AMOLED display sits another ultra low power display. Now, Ticwatch have gone down the route of implementing two separate displays in a single smartwatch, mainly to combine it with a new Snapdragon processor to deliver power and battery efficiencies. And the way this works is that by default, the AMOLED touchscreen will be activated when you're using the smartwatch day to day. But when you're inactive or even sleeping, the watch switches to an essential mode where various power consuming apps and functions are disabled, with the ultra low power display taking over the screen to deliver that 80 hours battery claim. Now, I promise I'll get to the 80 hours battery claim and if that's achievable in real life later on in this video. Now, the display itself is made of Corning's Gorilla Glass, and it has held up really well during my fairly heavy usage. And I think it is robust enough for most applications this watch will be used for. Speaking of robustness, and although the Ticwatch Pro 5 doesn't look like it, it has also been tested to the US military standard, which is designed to test military equipment's resistance to environmental conditions it may face during its lifetime. Now, I haven't really tested the Ticwatch Pro 5 in these extreme conditions, but given that it is certified, I'll take their word for it. And on top of that, there's also 32GB of internal storage, so there's plenty of space for apps, watch faces, music, and so on. Now, the back there's Ticwatch's proprietary suite of sensors that can track your heart rate, sleep, blood oxygen levels, as well as skin temperature. Now, there's no information on Ticwatch's product materials or website that says what generation or version of sensors they're using, but I have tested the heart rate sensor accuracy in a bit more detail, and I'll get to that later on in this video. Now, the watch interface here is quite intuitive, and the display is adequately large to use day to day. Swiping left or right takes you to app shortcuts or tiles that you can set up and customize with the app on your phone. Swiping up shows you all the notifications from the watch on your phone. Swiping down shows you all of the device settings and shortcuts such as Google Wallet, Do Not Disturb. Now, there's also a crown on the right side of the watch that is actually usable here, and you can rotate it to scroll through menus, notifications, and if you're listening to music, you can increase or decrease the volume of the music that's playing. And you get this subtle but reassuring haptic feedback every time the crown does a full rotation. Now, pressing the crown once takes you to all of the apps, and pressing it twice opens the last used app. And I must say that using the crown has probably been the most satisfying part of using this smartwatch for me over the last few weeks. I mean, I even set up the watch to scroll through the app tiles using the crown instead of the default way of swiping across the touchscreen. Pressing the button on the top right side of the watch opens the list of recently used apps, and double pressing it opens the Google Wallet app by default. Now, long pressing this button shows the watch restart and power off options if you need to. Now, when it comes to watch faces, there's a massive library of watch faces available to download and install on the Ticwatch Pro 5. And you can do this by long pressing on the watch face and scrolling across the options that are saved within the watch. Now, there's even animated watch faces and some where you can change the complications and even customize the colors. Honestly, you can spend ages trying to pick a watch face here. There's just so many good options. The touch input and software speed has been really good and it's never crashed or become unusable during my use. Oh, by the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you smash that like button so I can reach out to more wearable tech lovers just like yourself. Thank you, and back to the main video. Now, given the Ticwatch Pro 5 is running wearOS, there's quite a lot of focus on smart functionality and the use of apps on the Ticwatch Pro 5. The Google Play Store is pre-installed here and there's a ton of apps that can be downloaded straight onto the watch. And I've quite enjoyed searching for a destination on Google Maps, seeing the directions live, sending messages on WhatsApp, picking my workout playlist on Spotify, and streaming music to my earbuds straight from the watch, all without even having to touch my phone. Oh, and there's also Google Wallet pre-installed on the Ticwatch Pro 5, so you can load your credit card and use your watch to pay for things when you're shopping outside. Now, the only thing that's probably a sore point for the Ticwatch Pro 5's user interface is the lack of Google Assistant. Now, many of the new wearOS-based smartwatches do have Google Assistant pre-installed in them, so this is definitely a missed opportunity. Now, when it comes to exercise and activities, Ticwatch say that there's over 100 activities built into the watch, and if you go into the Tic Exercise app, you can see a massive library of activities and see even things like archery in there. But if you start looking at this list closely, there's a lot of these activities that are singular exercises, such as arm curls, bench press, and so on. Now, I do know and appreciate that people sometimes work on only one training activity, such as deadlifts, but including things like arm curls and bench press as separate activities is inflating this list a bit. Oh, and if you're into trail running, hiking, or mountaineering, the Ticwatch Pro 5 has a built-in barometer as well as an altimeter that can help you keep track of barometric pressure and altitude fluctuations with graphs that show the changes over time, which can help you stay up to speed. Now, the Ticwatch Pro 5 also comes with a blood oxygen saturation sensor that can measure your blood oxygen levels once an hour during the day. And when you're asleep, you can bump up the frequency to once every 30 minutes or real-time monitoring. Now, the information presented on the watch is fine. It shows the oxygen saturation percentage measured every hour in a clean chart. Now, the Mobvoi Health app is not providing any additional information on top of what the watch is already showing us, except for a note here at the bottom that tells you what the typical ranges are and what the potential issues might be if your readings are out of range. Now, the Ticwatch Pro 5 is capable of detecting and recording sleep stages and their occurrences when you're asleep. Now, what I'm normally looking for from a wearable like this is the level of data and insight provided by not just the watch, but also by the app to try and improve the duration and quality of your sleep. Now, the Ticwatch Pro 5 does provide some level of insight into this. For example, my resting heart rate, blood oxygen levels when asleep, respiratory rate or breaths per minute, and even skin temperature variations. Now, I do like the fact that there's this small question mark for some of these metrics, which gives some more information on what that metric is and why it's important. Now, the Mobvoi app gives some additional insight into consistency of bedtimes, sleep durations, and wake up times. What I think would have made this better is an overall sleep score displayed on the watch when you wake up, rather than having to go into the Mobvoi Health app and trying to find this sleep score in this tiny text box. Now, I mentioned skin temperature variations very briefly before, and these variations normally occur due to changes in room temperature, the onset of an illness, changing of bedding, menstrual cycle, or changes in circadian rhythm. But there's not much information provided within the watch or in the app on the phone, which starts making this data less useful, and it's definitely a missed opportunity here. Now, when it comes to heart rate tracking accuracy, I've been using the Ticwatch Pro 5 in the gym as well as for outdoor running, and to benchmark my heart rate readings, I've used the Polar H10 chest strap, which uses ECG technology to record heart rate data and is often considered as the gold standard for heart rate measurement. And when it comes to indoor cycling, which is one of the easiest activities for a smartwatch to detect and record, the Ticwatch Pro 5 does really well. It picks up the rise in my heart rate pretty accurately, and it picks up almost all of the peaks as well as troughs fairly quickly, and overall it achieved an average accuracy of 99%. And when it comes to outdoor running, there is some degree of arm movements, but it is still one of the easier activities for a smartwatch to detect and record. And when it comes to the heart rate readings, the Ticwatch Pro 5 has again done really well when it compares to the Polar H10 chest strap. I mean, there are a couple of points where it underestimated the heart rate readings, but overall it achieved an average accuracy of 99% for outdoor running, which is again an excellent result for the Ticwatch Pro 5. Now, strength training is where most wrist-based optical heart rate sensors start to struggle because of the large variations in hand and wrist movements. And looking at the heart rate readings here, there are quite a lot of data points where the Ticwatch Pro 5 failed to identify the peaks in my heart rate, and it is definitely struggling in picking up the rapid changes between the high and the low points as I do one set, rest, and then move on to the next. At the lower range of heart rate readings, the Ticwatch Pro 5 does well in detecting them, and they're almost in line with the chest strap. And overall, the average accuracy of the Ticwatch Pro 5 for strength training has been 95%. But do know that there are some inaccuracies when detecting the peaks in heart rates when doing strength training. And if you are looking for a heart rate sensor that can detect these rapid peaks in heart rate, then you're better off using an ECG chest strap or an arm-based optical heart rate sensor. Now, when it comes to GNSS and location tracking, the Ticwatch Pro 5 has a single band receiver that can tap into all 5 satellite systems, which helps it acquire location pretty quickly. There's also a high performance mode in the smartwatch, which increases the frequency of location updates. Now, I use the Ticwatch Pro 5 for outdoor running, and looking at the map here, the route you see here in blue is the actual route I ran, and the red route here is what the Ticwatch Pro 5 recorded. It caught my location fairly soon after I started the run. It managed to keep track of my location roughly on the correct roads, but it struggled a bit, probably due to the buildings in the city center. As you can see, it keeps flicking between the left and right side of the roads, whereas my running route was only on the left side in this segment. The location tracking was better in an open space in this segment near the river, as well as in the park, and then when I ran back into the city, the watch showed me roughly on the correct roads, but again kept swerving between the left and right sides. Now, overall, the GNSS and location tracking is okay on the Ticwatch Pro 5, and there are some issues if you're running in the city center, but I personally don't have any issues with this small margin of error. Nevertheless, you do have the option of high performance GNSS tracking available within the smartwatch should you need exceptionally accurate location tracking. Now, a good smartwatch experience also relies heavily on its companion app on your phone. And looking on the Mobvoi Health app here, the interface is clean, but it still shows you all of the health metrics measured by the watch. The main page shows all the metrics in these tiles, such as today's activity, sleep, exercise, heart rate, SpO2, and so on. Now, each tile can be opened to get some more details, and selecting any of these tiles opens up a bit more information. So for example, opening up the exercise tile here shows me all of the activities I did during the week, and opening up an activity, say the outdoor run here, opens up a few more stats such as the duration, the distance run, pace, recovery time, heart rate chart, cadence chart, GPS route, and so on, which is really nice to see. Now, selecting the device option at the bottom of the app takes you to device settings where you can change watch faces, pick the tiles you'd like to see on the watch, as there's a maximum limit of 10, and you can also customize many other settings of the watch. And now it's good to see that there's no paywalls here like some of the other brands including Fitbit and Amazfit, and all of the analyses are made available to users for free. And Ticwatch, if you're watching this video, please don't start adding any paywalls to your app. Thank you. Now, I mentioned that you can install watch faces on your smartwatch using the Mobvoi Health app, but to get access to the full library of watch faces, you need to then download another app here called the Time Show app. And yes, there's quite a lot of watch faces here, but many of these are paid options, and there's no easy way of filtering the free ones from the paid ones. And that actually brings me on to some of the annoying features of the Ticwatch Pro 5. Some of the things in the watch as well as the Mobvoi app seem a bit underbaked to me here. So for example, when I first started using this watch, the stress tile here in the app was always empty. Now, I assumed that the Ticwatch Pro 5 would constantly monitor my stress levels during the day, and give me a live report whenever I open the watch, something similar to what Garmin does on many of their wearables. But that was a wrong assumption, of course. You see, you need to first take a proper measurement first on the watch, which then shows up in the app as well. And there's not much insight or analysis here, given it's just one measurement during the entire day, except for a generic note at the bottom. What's the point of that? Now, Ticwatch have advertised a feature called one-tap measurement quite heavily in their marketing materials, and this is meant to record your heart rate, blood oxygen levels, respiratory rate, stress levels in one go, to provide a snapshot of your health and give some feedback on what you could do to improve it. But for me, it failed to go beyond the heart rate measurements for some reason, and I tried this multiple times on several days, checked if my blood oxygen monitoring was on, and even restarted the watch a few times, but I just didn't have any luck. Now, if you want your blood oxygen measurements to be taken only when you're asleep, which is actually the more useful period for these measurements, then you need to make sure that you switch on the 24-hour monitoring option on, which means that the watch will now take one measurement per hour. This is actually much worse for the overall battery life of this watch than having to take measurements only when you're asleep. Now, I find it quite strange that Ticwatch have done all of this work in implementing two separate screens in one smartwatch and tried to integrate that with a new Snapdragon processor, but still haven't included the option of selecting a specific time period for blood oxygen measurements. Now, I use my watch as an alarm every day to wake up in the morning, and I have two alarms set up 30 minutes apart from each other because I know I never wake up on the first one. But for some reason, whenever I snoozed or dismissed the first alarm, the second one never came on the Ticwatch Pro 5. Now, I suspect that the essential mode of the watch is stopping the second alarm from coming on, and after a couple of days when I woke up late for work, I made sure that I used my Garmin Venue 2 as an alarm to wake up in the morning because I just couldn't rely on the Ticwatch Pro 5 anymore. Now, although the heart rate accuracy of the Ticwatch Pro 5 is fine during workouts, I'm not exactly sure what's going on with the heart rate measurements when I'm resting. You see, I know that my long-term resting heart rate is under 60 beats per minute as measured by my Garmin Venue 2 for well over a year, and some of the other wearables that I've tested on this channel have validated that as well. But for some reason, the Ticwatch Pro 5 is showing this consistently over 70 beats per minute. I'm not sure if it's the frequency of heart rate measurements being reduced when I'm resting, or if it's the algorithm in the background not able to smooth out errant heart rate readings when I'm resting. But something like this can be quite worrying to individuals who don't have access to other wearables to validate resting heart rate. It's not all negative though. Here are some cool features about the Ticwatch Pro 5. Now, once the battery on the Ticwatch Pro 5 starts going below 5%, it automatically switches itself to essential mode, in which almost all of the smart functions are turned off, but it can still record steps, heart rate, as well as sleep. Now, in my battery test within the first week, the Ticwatch Pro 5 went into essential mode, which is 5% charge, at around 12 p.m. on day 3. And even after that, it kept going for 14 more hours till it finally died on me at 2 a.m. And when I opened the app and recharged the watch the next day, the app showed me all the steps, my heart rate, as well as my sleep tracking up to the point at 2 a.m. before which it died, which I think is really cool. The Ticwatch Pro 5 has fast charging capabilities, and Ticwatch say that it can charge from 0 to 65% in just 30 minutes. And in my own experience, the first time that it completely discharged, it went from 0 to 41% in just 27 minutes, which is not far off Ticwatch's own claim. And you could just charge for 10 to 15 minutes and make this smartwatch last for an entire day. You can make good use of the 32 gigabytes of storage space on the Ticwatch Pro 5 by downloading and streaming your favorite music straight from the watch. So for example, here I downloaded my workout playlist from Spotify, and I can stream this via Bluetooth straight into my earbuds, which means I no longer have to take my phone with me if I'm working out at the gym or running outdoors. The color of the ultra low display on the Ticwatch Pro 5 can change dynamically depending on which heart rate zone you're working in. So for example, currently in zone 3, and I'll try ramping up my heart rate. And that's much better than looking at the small heart rate zone rings in a normal activity page, which would look something like this. The Ticwatch Pro 5 is capable of constantly monitoring for irregular heart rhythms and can alert you to potential heart health issues in real time. Now, if your Ticwatch Pro 5 gets wet for whatever reason, there might be water droplets stuck in its speaker, which means that some of the alerts and notifications will be dampened. But you can actually drain the water from the speakers here by selecting this water droplet in the watch's settings, and the watch will play this low and high-pitched sound from the speaker. And if you do this, say, after having a shower, you can actually hear the sound bubbling and pushing the water droplets out. Now let's talk about battery life, the part that all of you have been waiting for. Now the claim of 80 hours is quite a big deal. And to give you an example, Samsung's latest Galaxy Watch 6 Classic claims an overall battery life of 40 hours. And the Ticwatch Pro 5 is claiming twice of that. And before this, the only other smartwatch that I can think of had a multi-day battery claim was Samsung's Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, that also claimed 70 to 80 hours battery life. Now there is a caveat to this 80 hours battery claim in that the watch should be able to switch to essential mode when you're not using it. And the way the essential mode works is that the watch reverts itself to only performing basic functions. It also turns off the AMOLED screen and the ultra low power display takes over the screen. And I'm always suspicious with the manufacturer claims because they're always tested in strict conditions. So when I test wearables on this channel, I make sure that I test them as if they were my own wearable. So in the case of the Ticwatch Pro 5, I set the brightness level to medium. I turn the always on display off, but I still use the AMOLED touchscreen whenever I interacted with the UI. I connected the watch to my phone to receive and reply to notifications all day. Used the GPS for outdoor running, and I also downloaded music onto the watch and streamed my Spotify playlist straight to my earbuds without having to use my phone. Oh, and I also kept sleep tracking on with blood oxygen measurements taken once every hour. And looking at the battery drain profile, the Ticwatch Pro 5 lost around 5% charge when I was sleeping at night and 11% charge during activities, which included a mixture of gym workouts as well as outdoor running using the watch's built-in GNSS tracking. Now overall, the Ticwatch Pro 5 lasted for exactly 67 hours with my heavy usage in the first week, and in my second week I didn't really go for an outdoor run and didn't stream music using Bluetooth from the watch to my earbuds, but still did all of the other things that I did in my first week and even went to the gym for an indoor workout, and the battery lasted for 75 hours, which is so close to their 80 hours claim. Now I'm really surprised in a good way and impressed by the fact that this smartwatch is able to do all of the things that I have been discussing and last for close to 3 days, and in some cases just over 3 days on a single charge. Oh, and by the way, if you're planning on using the Ticwatch Pro 5 for walking, I recently completed a hike and I did roughly 8 kilometers, and the battery drained from 41% to 18% without using the high performance GNSS mode. So if you're planning on going for a long hike, I definitely suggest charging this watch to 100% before you set off. So then, is the Ticwatch Pro 5 truly a hidden gem running wearOS that you should consider when purchasing a smartwatch, or is it just another overhyped wearOS watch with a terrible battery life? Now, apart from some very minor issues, the Ticwatch Pro 5 packs quite a lot of features, has a rich wearOS experience, and has a battery that lasted me close to 3 days with fairly heavy usage. Now, I think that is a hidden gem in the world of wearOS smartwatches, and you should definitely go ahead and buy the Ticwatch Pro 5, but only if you can get it for less than $300 US. Now, I mentioned $300 US specifically because there is another smartwatch running a newer version of wearOS, claims 100 hours of battery life, which is more than 4 days, also has a new Snapdragon processor, and costs $300 US. Now, to find out what that smartwatch is, make sure you smash that subscribe button so you don't miss out on my next video. See you in the next one.